The famous penetrating shot meta build on a rogue. We got 3 different versions of this build. This is a poison penetrating shot and one of the best speed pushers in the game. As I said, build is completely meta and I opted in to make a guide for it for a very simple reason. It merges extremely well with my Dance of Knives build that I already released. And when I say merges, I mean it uses 90% same items and exactly the same glyphs like Dance of Knives. So it took me exactly 5 minutes to compile this build and give you all the options, because plenty of people ask me how to play penetrating shot. They don't deal enough damage, they don't know how to set up, how to position, what to do, what to pick, and so on. Well, I'm gonna give you 3 versions of it so you learn how to use penetrating shot rogue. Let's go. The very first thing that we need to speak about are pros and cons of this build. What is the actual benefit? First, it's meta, which means it scales like crazy with gear, with talismans, with glyphs, and it deals a lot of damage, way much more than most of other rogue builds. That's the first thing why you should consider playing it. And the second reason is that this build takes only 1 click in a skill tree to switch the build variant and opt in from speedy version to slower but damage dealing version, which we're gonna talk about later. What are the cons of the build? First of all, it's very hard to acquire all items needed. Second, the build is static. It's not like Barbarians Whirlwind, Paladins Blessed Hammers, Rogues Dance of Knives, where you move and deal damage. Here you move, you stop, you pop, then you move again, dash, then you shoot again. It's kinda clunky until you get used to it. I like builds that offer a lot of speed. This one doesn't offer speed. Again, you gotta stop and pop. Okay, you can't shoot on a go. And that's probably the thing that I dislike the most about any ranged build, especially about penetrating shot. If you don't mind that, then this is the build for you, because it deals tremendous amount of damage. And also, what's the last thing that's troublesome for this rogue? Squishy, like any other rogue, but this one is extra squishy, so you gotta know how to position when you play. With all of that aside, let's begin. As always, we're gonna start with specialization. You should play this penetrating shot rogue with the inner sight. But if you have problems with sustain and with energy, then do switch on preparation. This is your choice what you wanna do. I prefer it with inner sight. As far as the mercs go, of course we want Rahir with Mocking Lure. You stick all the way to the left side, and we want Variana to increase attack speed. That's about it, very simple. Now what about itemization? The bread and butter and the most essential item for this build would be the Eagle Horn bow. You see the one I equipped and you see the mythic. I rolled like 5 or 6, and the stats that we want on the Eagle Horn are of course damage over time multiplier, all damage multiplier, and vulnerable. And then comes dexterity, life, and so on, but those would be the most important stats. And of course the bow comes flat with penetrating shot, yeah. So it's quite simple to imagine why we're gonna use this bow. You cannot play this build without Eagle Horn, okay? Simple as that. That would be the most important item, mandatory. After that, the mandatory item would be Cowl of the Nameless. So, whether you have classic Cowl, unique Cowl, or the mythic one, it really doesn't matter. This is the one you wanna use. You want imbuement skills, you want all resists, life, dex, and that's about it. The third most mandatory item would be the Shrouded Gift. Now, whether you're gonna use the Shrouded Gift with Unique or Mythic version, you need movement speed on the Shrouded Gift, you need resists, life, and dex. This is how you sustain damage. And probably your most important defensive item. I'm speaking those items and how you should acquire them in order to play the penetrating shot. The next one would be Etna's Last Dagger. Or should I say the final one should be Etna's Last Dagger. For flat damage, you want imbue skills, you want damage over time multiplier. Those would be the most important. Then comes dexterity, life, poison damage over time, vulnerable, and whatnot. And now it's time to check the classic items. So on armor, flat resist, flat life, flat dexterity, and imprint, we're gonna go with flat damage reduction of 30% and poisoned enemies deal 15% less damage to you, because you deal poison damage with this penetrating shot. As far as the gloves go, what we want on gloves is dexterity, all damage multiplier, vulnerable damage multiplier, and damage over time multiplier. Also, what's very good to have is flat increase to penetrating shot +4 instead of vulnerable or all damage multiplier, your choice. If you can grab the gloves like that, that is. As far as the boots go, you got two versions for the boots. The first version is when you cast concealment on the imprint, you get damage reduction. And the second version is this offensive version over here that you're looking at, where marksman skills, because penetrating shot is marksman, deal increased damage. I opted in for increased damage because of the pit push. As far as the stats go, classic dex, life, armor, move speed, that's about it. Now, as far as all of the masterworking goes and how we want to temper items, every single item, from amulet, weapons, gloves, everything that you can imprint, okay, everything that you can temper, you wanna temper with imbuement potency. Now, for the amulet, can go with exactly the same stats like with gloves. Vulnerable damage multiplier, all damage multiplier, damage over time multiplier. But you can also go like this. All skills, +2 imbuement, and then some of those damage over times, or vulnerable damage. As far as the imprints go, we go with unstoppable, second imprint, and the first imprint would be damage increase over time. Now, as far as the rings go, we go with a Fortify for the imprint, same stats like for gloves, damage over time, vulnerable, all damage, dex. Second ring, Shadow Clones, you deal increased non-physical damage by 60% in exactly the same stats, if you can get those stats on a ring. And for the weapon, we want increased damage to vulnerable enemies, as well as some life, dexterity if you can find, all damage multiplier, damage over time multiplier. As you can see, damage over time goes for the upgrades for the masterwork absolutely everywhere. So you don't upgrade imbue, you upgrade damage over time. Everywhere is damage over time, where it's available, of course. And now let's transfer to the skill tree. Now, this is what I was talking about. We skip the first one, we go to the penetrating shot, we're gonna take ferocity, and we're gonna take damage increase. And now comes the biggest part. Ballista is when you push the pit. This is the damage dealing, but slow rogue. You gotta learn to position to play with Ballista. Definitely the biggest amount of damage output. This is a boss killer in the pit. When you play all other content, you're gonna go with a shadow shot, because you summon shades shoot as well, then you summon clones shoot as well. There's arrows on the entire screen. You don't need that much damage for all other content except the pit, so you can always play with a shadow shot. If you don't like shadow shot, you can always play with a trick shot. It's something in between shadow shot and ballista, so trick shot is definitely something in between. Okay, what I recommend for the entire content in a game, stick with shadow shot. Once you enter the pit, switch to ballista, and this is how you play penetrating shot rogue. Now, as far as the rest of the skills go, we take dash, we take primer, we take charges and cooldown reduction, and we take weaken on a dash. Down here with a dark shroud, we max it out and we take Shadow Dancer, and upgrades would be move speed and consume chance. If you have problems with energy, if you find yourself, because I had plenty of people asking, they ran out of energy during combat, they cannot shoot and they die. Okay, if you have those problems, all you need to do is switch on the overflow and you will have energy. So Dark Shadows, overflow, problem solved. Then you're gonna have energy non-stop. So once we're done with the Dark Shroud, now we go to the Concealment. We don't pick anything at all because of the Talismans, and we're gonna check Talismans immediately after this. We're gonna go to Recuperate Upgrade. Down here, we're taking the Poison Imbuement with duration and cooldown reduction, and we're gonna pick Toxic Touch. Here, we're taking Shadow Imbuement into Dark Dance, into Vulnerable, and the second upgrade would be Ferocity. If you intend to play with Cold, the best one to take is of course a Battery, or should I say, a Barrier. And down here, we take Shadow Clones, we upgrade with Weaken and Vulnerable, we take the cooldown reduction, and we pick Sentry. Additional arrows on top of those 2 shades, now you summon 3 more, that's 5, and when you shoot 6. So you plus 5 or 6 of them shoot at the same time. That's the penetrating shot when you wanna clear. That doesn't count when you play with Ballista though. So this is how it's supposed to look like. If you equip Dark Shroud on a rune, so I was playing here with Puck and Om for the Barbarian Warcry, but if you pick a Dark Shroud here, let's just see what it is. So if we pick Mat for the Dark Shroud, then we do not need Dark Shroud and we can opt in for the Cold Imbuement as well, so you'll ramp up Cold Imbuement instead of a Dark Shroud on a skill bar. And then when you trigger Poison, you trigger Shadow. Plus you trigger Cold like this. That would be the skill tree. Now we're gonna check the Talismans. And what Talismans do we use? This build is actually great because it doesn't require a mythic Horadric seal. You can easily play with any legendary seals with 6 slots, believe it or not. So this is why this build is also very cool. And what we need and what's the main set would be the Mlore of the Sightless. As you can see here, after we break stealth, we deal 250% increased damage. And what should we take for the rolls? Imbue, Marksman, Imbue, or Marksman. And for the 5th one, we go with the highest roll. If you got on a yellow, okay, for plus 40 Imbuement or plus 40 Marksman. And for the unique charm, we need Blood Mad Idol, because this is how damage scales up. With a Blood Mad Idol. This is the damage power spike basically. Again, you do not need a mythic seal for this build to work. Actually, it's gonna work even better with some classic legendary seal with proper passives for the Sightless. Now let's go to Paragon. For those that don't know, Paragon is exactly the same like the one I gave for the Dance of Knives. Alright, but we're gonna pass through it fast, you can pause when you want to. First glyph, we pick Efficiency, then we go to the second board where we're gonna take Eldritch Bounty and we're gonna pick Versatility. Third board, we're picking Exploit Weakness into Tracker. Pause when you want to, this is how it looks like. Fourth board, we're gonna go into Dance Macabre and the glyph would be Bane. And the final board, 5th board, we're gonna go into the Chip Shot and we're gonna pick Kenny. That's about it, simple as that, believe it or not, exactly the same Paragon board like for Dance of Knives, and it works flawlessly on Penetrating Shot Rogue. And for the end, the famous question that I keep getting non-stop from people, is it better to go with a mythic bow or with a unique bow but with better stats? Everything depends out of the transmog and whether the box will break the item or not. So it really doesn't matter which one it is as long as it's not a brick. That applies for every single item in a game. If you got a good transmog roll on a unique definitely it's better than Bricked Mythic. Simple as that. So use where the Tranced Mag is better. That will be that for the Penetrating Shot Rogue. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.